I was just caught drinking a commercial beer. I must be running low or something. Hey YouTube, Joe here. So today we're going to be doing our FastFerment review, the official FastFerment review. If you've seen in the past, or wherever I'll link it to, we've done a series of videos with the FastFerments now, from the unboxing when I got one, setting it up, getting the first batch of wine put in there. Since then I've done probably 6 or 7 more batches in it, both beers, wines. We've done a couple ciders in them, and so now I think I've got a bit better base of, you know, comparison, where it's like, okay, I've used this enough now to know some of the quirks of it, work through any, you know, flow issues I've had or anything like that, you know. So yeah, so a little bit more of an educated review here. So without further ado, the FastFerment. If you haven't checked out those videos, definitely do. But my official rating, if I had to give it out of 5 stars, I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. And here's why. So my favorite parts about it. I like that it's plastic. I like that it's easy to clean and lightweight. You don't have to really worry about it too much. The plastic's fairly, what is it they call it, hydrophobic. It rejects water well, which means not a lot of stuff really sticks to it. I've only had one batch out of all the ones I've done in there where the krausen kind of dried in place, but it's actually because I left it way too long in here. I left it almost probably a month with that krausen funk dried on the side, so a little bit of a problem there on my own side. So I like that it's nice and easy to clean. The collection ball is really cool. As it ferments, it kind of collects stuff, it kind of settles down the side, drops into the collection ball. It's very, very easy to pull the collection ball off, rinse it out, sanitize it, pop it back on, and you're good to go. So I like that. I've had absolutely no problems with any of my seals, contrary to some folks here on YouTube have said otherwise. I've had 0 problems with my seals. Now, one part that I did have to kind of work through a little bit was with this lid. The lid was very, very tight the first several times to get it on there. I still have to kind of wrench it a little bit to get it to actually press up against the silicone gasket that's in there. So a little bit of a negative on that side. I like the thermowell. I like being able to pop in a thermometer, you know, pop it right in. You got your liquid temperature, so you know where your batch is fermenting at. So yeah, things that I like. I like that it's plastic and lightweight, easy to clean. The collection ball works really well for the most part. The seals, once you get them tightened down, are very, very good. It was easy to put together. It's very easy for me to clean in my setup here, so, you know, I can't complain there. Why do I give it 4 out of 5 stars? Well, number one, the seal. The top here is a bitch to get tightened down. I went through and actually found some flanges of plastic that were kind of frayed out a little bit, and took a, what is it, an X-Acto knife and cut them out, and that helped a lot. And then basically just kind of torquing it down, I'm guessing wearing some of this plastic down made the seal a lot easier to get. So if I had to do it again, or if I had to design this myself, I would make this thing easier to seal because it has the silicone gasket. There's no reason why these threads need to be so damn tight. So that's a little frustrating. One in-process thing I've noticed is, I'm sure you all remember from that very first video when we did the wine kit, when you have a lot of particulate matter in your batch, it's going to clog this thing up instantly, almost instantly. Now that's not necessarily a knock on FastFerment. That's kind of the way it would be with any conical, because they all collect that stuff. They're doing exactly what they're designed to do. But with a standard conical, you would open the port to basically blow all that stuff out. With this, you don't really have that option. You have to close off the valve, drain all the stuff out, pop it back on, and you're good to go. So in the event of that wine that I had all the oak and stuff that was collecting down here, I basically closed this off, dumped it back in the top because that's where all the yeast went, right down there. Opened it back up, it blurbed through, and it fermented out just fine. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a huge problem, but it is something that in your workflow you're going to have to consider. Standard beers, standard gravity beers, the Brewer's Best Cider House Select kits that I do. You know me, I always have a cider on tap. Never had a problem. They never slog up this so much that it's full and foul. I did do a Belgian in here with 3711 yeast. It went through a crazy fermentation. It was like cruising like crazy. You can tell a lot of yeast reproduced in there, and that actually did cause, again, a little bit of a clog down here, but that was not normal. That was not my usual experience. So so yeah, that being said, let's see, seal on the top, some clog issues depending upon your batch. Oh, and then, so where this is sitting here, you can see it's as tall as I am. This is not the normal configuration. You can take this and bolt it on the wall a little bit lower down. If I were to adapt this wall that they spaced incorrectly here in the house, it would be just fine, and I would have it there. It'd be lower, it'd be a lot easier to use. So in my past videos, you've seen me trying to deal with this up here with like a step ladder and stuff. This is not the norm unless you don't have a place to put it, in which it could be the norm. So there's definitely a size issue you got to take into consideration. So that's why I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think a couple tweaks and this thing would be absolutely perfect. Smaller threads up here, so that way the threads don't bind up and you can actually just use your silicone gasket in the top there. Almost priming yourself for, you know, knowing what would work well in a system like this, because it can clog, it has, but that's easy to fix. It's not hard at all to fix a clog in there. Yeah, stand works out well. I would probably, and even though it's so tall, I would make the stand a little higher. And the reason being, the barb and hose setup I have here, I had to replace the hose because the hose was a little too short from, you know, I don't know, waist height here. It was probably 2 feet too short. So I added on another, you know, I removed that hose, put on a nice longer hose, so now it reaches all the way down to the floor, much better. So maybe a 5-foot section rather than a 3-foot section of hose. And then raising this up a little bit, if the stand was just a little bit taller, I would have no bend in the hose, and I wouldn't have to tilt it like this, which can become a little problematic. So that's literally every beef I've got with this thing. I really like it. I will probably do every one of my ciders in here. Anything that has a good flocculating yeast, it's nice and clean, doesn't replicate to become, you know, a gallon of slurry, will work perfectly in here. Your standard wine kits that don't have huge amounts of oak or herbs or anything like that added to them, again, would be absolutely perfect in here. Your standard batch beers would be just fine. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars is what I would give it. I highly recommend that you pick one up. If you do, check out DIYHomebrewSupply.com. It's my store. You can get them there. Our shipping is really competitive for these things. They're big, but they're lightweight, so it's that dimensional shipping that always screws everyone over. I really like it. I've had only a couple issues with it, and nothing significant. And most of my beefs, I guess, would just be these tiny little, you know, tiny little things, you know. Making this seal up here a little bit easier to manage at the start would be great. Now it tightens up and down no problem. I still got to give it a little bit of a torque at the end, but you know, that's what you do. That's what you do. So maybe addressing that a little bit. And then my personal planning of what batches go in here would go a long way to help prevent clogs and any additional buildup here that's not, you know, necessary. The collection ball works great. I have done batches of wine in here, removed the collection ball, and then basically drained that whole lot into a carboy just to see how much sediment came out of it, and it was very minimal. So this does a great job at collecting your sediment, which is going to clog this up if that's the case. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. I love it. I think this thing is great. Now I did want to bring up, I've had this taped to my, well, not taped, but you know, it's Post-it stuck to my finger. And these are some of the issues that other people brought up in my other videos about the FastFerment. In particular, the updates regarding the fast ferment video I did. And I just wanted to bring them up because I thought they were kind of good conversation points, and it could you know, influence you and how you're if you're thinking about getting one of these, or if you already have one, maybe working through your workflow issue. So first was addressing putting it together using the thread tape. Now, if you're used to working with thread tape, it's very easy. You cover your threads in it, you tighten everything down so that way everything lines up, and then you let it be. You don't have to tighten the sucker down so much that, you know, plastic is on plastic and it's like bending up. The purpose of thread tape is to create your seal. So as long as you tighten it down, you let it be, it should be fine. Now, if you're new to using thread tape, it does take a little bit of trial and error. I've done enough plumbing in the house to I'm sick and tired of thread tape and, oh God, plumber's putty and all that stuff. So, so yeah, coat it well with your thread tape, tighten it down, and let it be. Fill it up. I filled mine all the way up to the very top with water, and I let it set for probably 12 hours just to see if any little thing was leaking. And in my system, absolutely nothing was leaking. So I don't know if folks that have had any leakage problems, if it was necessarily how they put their thread tapes, you know, on, or how they constructed it. Maybe it wasn't quite tightened down all the way to start off with. I don't know. But this, I've not adjusted anything. I've ran, like I said, 7 or 8 batches now through it, and no leaks. No leaks! So, there we go. The height. In my videos, I've got it up here on this high counter. This counter is literally at my waistline. This may not be the norm for you. If you've got something you could set it down on, it would be a lot easier to access the top here, and you wouldn't have to, you know, hop up top and do all that stuff. So this is not the case in all scenarios. It comes with the wall mounting bracket, so if you can mount it down, they tell you how many inches. It's like 21 or 28 inches off the ground is where they recommend it, and that's easy to get to the top, and it's also easy to handle the spigot on the bottom if you're doing any bottle filling or anything like that. So if the, you know, where you're putting it is a concern, think about where you could put it in your place and adjust accordingly. Temperature control and the sheer size of it. So this is not necessarily a conversation that is specific to the fast ferment. This is something you're going to have to consider if you do any conical. And the reason is conicals have legs. They're tall. They're much larger fermenters than just a bucket would be. They need the space for the cone. You know, if you think, you know, X amount of volume as a cylinder versus as a cone, you know, you're cutting it, what, like in half or something like that? So it has to have height. These are not small, you know, this is me standing next to it, so from waist to above my head, so, I mean, it's tall, it's a big device. You're going to have that same issue with any conical you're looking at. Your Blickman stainless steel, the SS Brewtech stainless steel, the fast ferment plastic, anything that is like the true conical, I guess I should say, nice big cone, and it has ejection or collection ports on the bottom here, you're going to be dealing with a size issue. And yes, that can be a concern. So when I say I'm going to do all my ciders and my base, not heavily oaked wines in this, that's because they're not temperature sensitive, and I don't need to put this in my fermentation chamber, in my mini fridge. This will not fit in the dorm mini fridge at all. No, not a chance in hell. If you had one of the compact fridges, that's about as tall as a person, but, slender, those could work, but then you'd have to have a dedicated, space for this big thing, or a dedicated space for your Blickman or your SS Brewtech. Conicals, just in the way they're built, are larger, they're taller, they need space for these attachments and valves and stuff. So you're going to have a temperature control issue unless you have something big enough that can hold a conical, whether it be theirs or the fast ferment. So I don't think that's necessarily a detriment to fast ferment. I knew that going into it, and that's why I've kept it at room temperature. Anything that it can do, mid 60s through low 70s, so the ciders work great. The wines, I've even had to put a heat wrap on here for the wines because it was so chilly here in the winter, and it worked just fine. So, you know, consider what batches you're going to be making. If you do a lot of English ales or Belgian ales where you just let it be at room temperature, whatever happens, happens, sweet deal. Something like this would be perfect. You don't have to worry about it. If you are concerned, though, about getting the internal temperature of your wort or your must, you know, down, and you're putting in your electronic probes and stuff like that, you're going to need something big enough to handle something like this. And this is not a problem that you're going to have just with the FastFerment. You're going to have it with any true conical. The Brew Bucket by SS Brewtech is not a true conical. You can't dump the tube. That's the point of the conical. So the Brew Bucket would fit just fine in my dorm fridge. It's essentially a giant stainless steel bucket with kind of a cone bottom. It collects the stuff, which is groovy. But I don't put that in the, you know, in a true conical category, because it's not. When you're collecting the tube and getting rid of it, or if you've got an ejection port where you can open the valve and dump it, you have to have space. You just got to have space for it. They're going to be bigger, so that's just something you're going to have to deal with. Oh yeah, and then my last note, true conicals versus the like brew demons or brew buckets with spigots and siphon arms. We already just had that conversation. You got this, you need the space for this stuff in order to do what the conical is supposed to do. The brew bucket and the brew demon are essentially cone-bottomed buckets. They're more squat. Yes, they can fit in a dorm fridge. Yes, they can fit in a small like Keyser setup a lot easier than something like this would, but you're not getting the functionality of the conical, which is what a lot of folks are looking for when you do this. At least in my opinion. So, yeah, there we go. There we go. The FastFerment, the little text there. Ooh, I'm not, you can't even see it. It's white on white. It's embossed. But, so, the FastFerment, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I really do like it. It has been awesome to not have to transfer stuff anymore when I use this thing. And in spite of a couple clogs and stuff, they've been very easy to address. I've not had to dump everything, you know, clean, sanitize, and put the batch back in. I haven't had to do any of that. I have had some folks ask me, you know, when you release this bulb and it bloops the air through there about, you know, oh God, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. You know, 7 or 8 batches in, I can't even remember now, I've had 0 oxidation, and I put lighter beers in here just to try to taste for that, you know, that kind of cardboardy thing. I haven't picked up on that at all. In my opinion, the little bulb of air here, you know, if you do it once or twice throughout the whole time this sucker's, you know, full of your wort or your wine, that's going to probably be less surface area exposed to oxygen as just a standard racking from cardboard to cardboard to cardboard, unless you're purging your carboys with, you know, nitrogen or CO2 or something, you know, an inert gas. I've got the capability to do that, but I've not done it with this. You know, I haven't purged the collection ball with CO2 and then blooped that. I've had no oxidation problems whatsoever with this. I have let batches go in here also well over a couple months, which I talked with some of the customer service people at FastFerment, and they said, you know, they don't recommend leaving anything for long term in here because it is plastic. It is going to have a gas transfer. And so I kind of let one batch go. It was, I believe, one of the ciders. I let it go, geez, almost like a month longer than it should have, and it was fine. It worked out just fine. So don't be scared of the bloop. It'll be fine. If you are scared about it, purge this thing with CO2 and then bloop it. You won't have a problem. You're not going to have a problem anyway, I don't think. So please do leave messages down below. Thumbs up if you liked it. Leave comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I hope this helps make up your mind about the FastFerment. Again, if you're looking to pick one up, head to DIYHomebrewSupply.com. Check us out. I would love your support. It really does mean the world to us. We're a company of all 3 people. Everyone in my family, you've already met them all here on YouTube. We appreciate any support you guys send our way. So, yeah, without further ado, back to my commercial beer. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. 17.